I have to wonder, Shane, as we go live, I have to wonder, you know how like analytics works for like social media, it works for Facebook, it works for Twitter, like, you interact with certain things and it starts to blow up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of my friends decided to put a free boat up on Craigslist and put my phone number down. And it's getting really hot right now. I'm not even kidding you. Like, this isn't like the past like hour. It's just Craigslist message after Craigslist message. I don't know if you can see all this. It's literally just Craigslist messages up to where my mom is. Everything above that, outside of Matt, is people trying to get this free boat off of me.
I mean, it's a free fucking boat, dude. Yeah.
Dude, I am so just, I'm annoyed.
So I need to text you.
Dude, I swear, man. Like, I started texting everybody back, and I'm like, hey, yeah, you got the wrong person. Like, I didn't post this up. And then, yeah, I started realizing, like, yeah, this just never gonna happen. So then I started sending people messages back. Like, let's see. They said, hey, I saw your ad on Craigslist for the free boat. Are you available tomorrow? And I said, no, but you can just come and get it. It'll be in my backyard. Just dispose of the body inside of it on your way out. So I've decided to just start messing with people at this point. And yeah, this is what it's come to. I've had a very busy day, very eventful day. So I figured I could have some fun with it. But it's been eventful for more than one reason, and I'm trying to stall until Jakob gets in here, but we just might have to start up the show without the Canadian.
Without him. I mean, he's probably in a corner crying over the loss of Carson Wentz. And, I can relate because I was there last year, pretty much at the same time. He's here.
Is he here?
Yeah.
He's in the chat. Okay, let's go ahead.
Oh, good. So he's one of those folks that's talking about Albert guys. Because, landing spot dependent correspondent, Alberto, tight end one season on board.
Yeah, right. Well, because he's a superstar. He's the tight end version of Tony Pollard. He's an elite talent locked behind an inferior talent. And now he's finally got a chance to show his stuff. I expect him to be an absolutely elite option at the position all year long.
Elite tight end, huh?
It's good to dream. I mean, so let's just get into Alberto. He's the 7th option on that offense.
Did you know that he ran a 4.49?
I did.
He's very fast.
Well, what else do you need to know?
While both ACLs were.
This is Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Shane Manila, Jakob Sanderson, and Chase Vernon.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome on into Fantasy Intervention. This has been a crazy past 48 hours. If you've been asleep like Ball's life, it's been absolutely nuts. But I'm excited to kick this show off. Excited to talk some certain topics. Jeez, Shane, how loud are you over there?
What?
Oh, nothing. But yeah, I'm excited to get into this, and we're going to start out with the Carson Wentz trade that happened tonight. We're going to start out with a bang because we have a Washington fan in here, right? We have an Eagles fan. We have an Indy fan. Welcome in, by the way.
Potentially former Indy fan. We're one Jimmy Garoppolo trade away from being a former Indy fan.
I mean, because they traded away Wentz, they done good, kiddo. They done good.
I like the. Well, I imagine we're going to talk about it, so maybe I should save my thoughts.
Kick it off.
Okay, so here's my thoughts on it. Like last year, I thought that they overpaid for Wentz, but I was still hopeful that he could turn it around. I thought that was definitely possible. I mean, until the last few games, like he was totally fine. Unless your expectations would be that he was going to revert back to 2017, the first 80% of the season, I think he was right in line with like 2018-19 Wentz, certainly a lot better than 2020 Wentz. And then he collapsed in the last couple of games. And it seemed like there was always some discord between him and Jim Irsay. And then, it became clear over the course of the offseason that they were going to go in a different direction. So I guess I'm sort of two minds. Like, I'm happy about it in the sense that they basically told everyone, hey, we're cutting this guy. We hate him. We don't want him anywhere near us. And then they still got a team to give them like legitimate return. They moved up in the second round this year. They got a third round pick for sure this year. And then they have a pick next year that'll either be a third or a second. So worst case, 2/3 and a move up, potentially a third, a second, and a move up. And they got off all $28 million of that contract. Like that's pretty remarkable. The concern for me is what they do next. Like, what I hope is that they just say, okay, we clearly made a mistake. We paid way too much for a replacement level quarterback. And so now we recoup some of the assets. We're going to get some other replacement level quarterback. And then we're going to make the rest of the roster as good as we can until we have a chance to hit on a franchise guy. My fear, like actual fear, like I'm not sure I'll be able to sleep at night fear, is that they say, all right, now we got all these picks. We're going to send like 2 seconds and 2/3 for Jimmy Garoppolo or something ridiculously stupid. Like we can have the argument of like, who's better, Wentz or Garoppolo? Like, I think that Wentz is better. If you think Garoppolo is better, that's fine. I don't really care. They're both mediocre. And trading like legit assets after mediocre quarterbacks is so infuriating. So we'll see. My hope is that they sign a stopgap quarterback like Trubisky or Mariota, and then they draft somebody in the back end of the first with a trade up, or maybe with their pick in the second. And then otherwise, if they're going to do a real trade, maybe they make it like a really legitimate trade for Kirk Cousins. I could kind of sort of talk myself into that. But I'll be keeping one eye open until I find out that we don't trade for Jimmy, which seems to be happening, and it's terrifying.
What about maybe a player like Derek Carr? I mean, Derek Carr is interesting. He's a safe play.
I mean, you're going to have to give
up. You hate Kirk Cousins.
Oh, no, I think Kirk is like substantially better than Carr. Like not even in the same tier.
Little known fact, I was on mute. Carr would cost a lot more. So would Cousins, because they're both much better quarterbacks than.
Yeah, like I think that's like a first plus a second or something like that for either. And I don't want to pay that for either, but I'd rather pay it for Cousins if I had to pay it for one of them.
Yeah, and I was going to say the difference is there if you add one of those two, and I'm assuming you're going to get a wide receiver in free agency so there's a legitimate wide receiver one on that team.
I think they might trade for Lockett, which would be nice.
That'd be fine too. You get Cousins with an offense with Pittman, Lockett, and JT, and a legitimate defense. And we already know that offensive line is stellar. And
T.Y. Hilton's not gone either. T.Y. Hilton's still there.
Okay,
that's a team that could contend for a Super Bowl. Should contend for a Super Bowl. Yep. Now you plop Jimmy G in there, and you got a team that's it's a little different.
I can't do it, man. I can't watch Jimmy G. I can't.
So my issue here was like the Colts, I feel like still had a decent quarterback. And I know there's turmoil behind the scenes that we didn't see, right? Because
real quick, I don't know if anyone read the Athletic article, but I did.
Oh, I sure did.
Because
I was like at work today. I was like, sorry guys, I'm not gonna get a lot of file work done. I'm reading the Athletic.
I love T, and just Carson Wentz. It must be just one of the biggest douchebags in the history of football. And you can get away with it when you're elite, like Aaron Rodgers. Like, I'm sure Aaron Rodgers, like on the scale of assholeness, is far above Wentz, but he's also ability-wise far above him, so he gets away with more. Like, Wentz needs to dial that back. Like, Wentz needs to be a nicer human being so people don't hate him because he's not that good of a quarterback.
The Athletic article was stinging. Like, it was basically just – Wentz kind of sort of played fine, but they really hated him.
They're like, look at his stats. They weren't too bad. He threw a lot of interceptions in the second half of games. But basically, there were people that would prefer having cancer than being on a team with Carson Wentz.
It was a tough article. Like, it was just, everything was like, and then I read the next article from the Indy Star, which was talking about why they think Jimmy G is the answer. And I almost blew my brains out. But basically, the entire article was just like, Jimmy G and Wentz are both quite average, but one of them's a total D-bag dick, and the other one smiles a lot and we like him. And I think that could be the difference.
It really could. I mean, when your team actually wants to play for you, right? Like, I think that does make a huge difference. But, I mean, with Carson Wentz, they still had a guy who, didn't have a terrible season like Jakob brought up. He played well for about 80% of it. He had 27 total touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Yeah, I mean, was it 8 or 7? I think it was 7.
It might have been 7. All right, 7.
Yeah, I mean, either way, they still had
his QBR was negative 105 against Jacksonville.
No, his QBR was actually 4.3 against Jacksonville.
Same difference.
I still don't know where the Colts could go that would benefit this team this year, because they would have to give up a major asset in order to acquire Kirk Cousins if they decide to go that route. Meanwhile, they don't have a high enough draft pick in order to get a quarterback in the draft that they could rely on. But I mean, the way that the coaches were sounding, the way the front office was sounding, was they want a quarterback that they can rely on for the next 10 to 12 years. And they were like, hey, Carson Wentz was not that guy. We need a guy that we can get. Well, that's not going to be a guy that they find in free agency. That's not going to be a guy that they find, in the late second round, or I should say now mid-second round of the draft. Right. And it's not a guy that you can really trade for, because you'd have to give up multiple assets that you don't have in order to get there.
I think the best way that you do that is you got 2/3 at minimum, and maybe even a little bit better than that. You get 2/3 minimum for Wentz. You use those 2/3. You pair them with the second, and you trade into the back end of the first, and you draft yourself a quarterback. And then basically, at that point, all you really did was you use the second round pick that you already had, plus the return you got for Wentz, to go get a quarterback in the first round that you do believe in, if they believe in a guy. But to me, I think that's what those thirds can be used for. And then you get a stopgap. So say you sign like Winston or Trubisky or Mariota, someone like that. And then, I don't know who they like necessarily, but if they like a Matt Corral or they like a Desmond Ritter, I think those guys are going to be available probably at some point in the pick 20 to 32 range. And I think you can get into that range with, maybe even a little bit higher if you offer pick 42 plus 2/3. I mean, they now have 5/3 this year and next year. So that would be huge, I think.
Look, you can build up, like you're saying, you can build up the rest of your roster. There's a few different ways to approach it. We've seen a couple different ways to skin a cat over the last couple years with getting an elite franchise quarterback. You can fall into it ass backwards. Patrick Mahomes falling to you for reasons unknown while teams are trading up to get Mitchell Trubisky. You could end up trading for Matt Stafford because you don't believe in making first round draft picks or the salary cap. But if you, if you can just plop a quarterback in there, I mean, I don't want to make it sound simplistic, but you're going to be able to find a quarterback. There's moves you're going to be able to make as long as you're willing to pay the cost for it. And if that cost is after this year, they realize they're a Super Bowl contending team and they're a quarterback away, I can guarantee you they'll trade every first and second they have in their arsenal to get up and get a Bryce Young or a, who's that other guy next year? CJ Stroud or even Spencer Rattler, maybe if he bounces back. You know what I mean? They're going to do what they need to, or there's going to be some other. We're entering a new era of fantasy, of the NFL, where there's mercenary quarterbacks where they're like, look, I don't like it here, and you're going to trade me. It's crazy. A decade ago, quarterbacks would die before they'd ever move. And this week,
Palmer was forced to retire because the Bengals were just like, we're not trading you.
Yeah. And it's a players league, man. Good for them. You know what I mean? Somewhere next year, there's going to be a quarterback that hates his coach, and he's going to say, I don't want to be here anymore. At least one of those.
Yeah. So after the original phone call failed from Washington over to the Chiefs, right? They probably shot a call over to the Bengals after that to see if Joe Burrow was available. And then they went over and shot a phone call to the Ravens. They're like, hey, he's right down the street. He can come visit from time to time, right? Let's get Lamar Jackson over here. We don't have to take him full time, just for part of the time. That probably failed too. And they were like, hey, Russell Wilson, 3 first-round picks. Man, we'll hop into that in a second. Or probably towards the end of the show. We're still going to get to that. But I do want to talk about Washington and what they gave up, because giving up 2 third-round picks, switching, a second-round picks, and possibly one of those third-round picks ends up being a second-round pick, seems like kind of a lot for that type of player, especially compared to what the picks were that the Colts gave the Eagles the year prior to, and how he played and how he still got hurt throughout like certain games, how he just didn't look healthy through certain games. I mean, did Washington overpay at this point? What are y'all's thoughts on that?
Yes,
because they
I mean, who are they bidding against? That's what I want to know.
Themselves. Look, if you're going to pay that, just go get Jimmy G. Jimmy G is better than Wentz. I'm sorry, and also his teammates don't hate him, mostly because he bangs porn stars, and I'm guessing their girlfriends are probably very friendly when they come around. But whatever, his teammates don't hate him. Like Wentz, I mean, Washington was fighting on the bench last year. You know what's going to happen. There's no way Wentz doesn't get beat up by his defensive line this year. Like, it's going to happen. It's going to be embarrassing. Like, we're all going to talk about how, like, it's a black mark on the NFL, seeing Carson Wentz getting, body slammed and getting an RKO, hit with an RKO.
Could you imagine Chase Young just knocking
That's what I'm saying. Look, the D tackles were ready to fight each other last year. Imagine what they're going to do to Carson Wentz when he just fucking does one of those Carson Wentz things where he holds the ball, runs across the field, tries to throw across his body behind his back.
Just throwing like this.
Fullback. Yeah. They're going to beat him to death. It's going to be a shame.
I just want you to make sure that you see a good therapist and that you have like a good form of anxiety medication ready for your Sundays, because like rooting for Carson Wentz every Sunday I've been through it now. Shane's been through it. And like, we're here if you ever need to talk, because I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
You guys are acting like I haven't been through this before as a Washington fan. This is a ninth time.
You haven't been. See, here's the problem. You haven't been.
Wentz is different because he's not just bad the way like Heineke's bad in the sense that he's physically limited. Mm-hmm. Like you can see, okay, like you watch Heineke and you're like, okay, this is a backup who tries really hard. And then with Wentz, like on certain days you watch him and it's like, oh man, this is a franchise quarterback. And then the next day you watch him and he looks like he's never played the sport of football before. And it's super maddening. And it creates problems. It's why teams keep trading things for him. And it's why he thinks that he's good. It's why he's your starting quarterback. And it's why your hair will be gray this time next year.
My hair is already turning gray, but let me just say this. So Washington, this is the 9th time that they've traded for a quarterback since Dan Snyder bought the team in 1999. This is the 9th time. We've also drafted quarterbacks in the first round. It's been, I think, 4 times, if I remember correctly.
Had a good quarterback.
Heath Schuler. Remember Heath Schuler?
Yep, Heath Schuler.
That was fun.
Robert Griffin, Jason Campbell, Patrick Ramsey, RG3 for the 1 year in his rookie year. Kirk Cousins was
but RG3 doesn't count. Like, he was the quarterback for 2 years as the number 2 overall
for like 1 year, pretty much.
They had
When's the last time you had like a sustained good quarterback? Which you did have Cousins, but you decided he wasn't good enough.
Joe Theismann.
It was Joe Theismann, yeah.
That's awful.
That's Joe Theismann only lasted a couple years. Doug Williams only lasted a couple years, so I don't even know that. I can't even say that was sustained because it wasn't. Joe Theismann, I think, actually played for us for a little bit longer. But anyways, I mean, back to it, like, we sit there. I'm not going to finish that. As we analyze where Washington sits, this is something that we've been through. Like Jeff George, this reminds me of the Jeff George signing back in the day when we already just traded
cast off
for and Vikings cast off too. But I mean, it's something where it's like, dude, why wouldn't you just draft a quarterback? But I honestly think that if Malik Willis or Sam Pickett makes it to number 11, I strongly believe that we will end up
just combine Sam Howell and Kenny Pickett into one person.
Oh, shit.
So you took Sam Howell's hands and put them on Kenny Pickett. I like that.
Dude, that's the second week in a row
now that you put Sam Howell's hands on Kenny Pickett, I think it's a good Pickett at 11 overall.
Good Pickett. I'm sorry, Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis. I think that either one of those could end up going there. I know that the Pickett's probably more NFL ready, doesn't really need a stopgap, but I think that Malik Willis needs to be developed. It could take him a year, it could take him 2 years to get to where it really needs to be. But we can cut Carson Wentz after this upcoming year. However, this is a fantasy show, so let's talk about Carson Wentz's impact on the Washington offense.
Can I just say, by the way, that would be like, man, I'm so conflicted because, like, given that they already did the Carson Wentz thing and they can't undo it, I do think that they should draft a quarterback at 11 if they're available. However, if they do that, why the fuck did they give 2 third-round picks and $28 million for Carson Wentz? Like, if you do draft a quarterback at 11, like, you could just bring back Ryan Fitzpatrick as your stopgap. Like, I don't know.
That's what I was thinking originally, was like, why didn't they just do this? But I strongly believe that they think that they can win this year, and they also have to restructure a bunch of their defensive linemen this upcoming year, along with, I think Fuller's due for a contract here shortly, along with a few other players. So this year, they're in the perfect situation, salary cap wise, to be able to afford a $28 million quarterback. After that, if they want to keep him on, they're going to have to let go of a couple of their veteran players. And so that's why I like the idea of drafting a rookie, is because they might be able to win now. There's a chance if Carson Wentz plays lights out, which I don't think is going to happen, but there's a chance if he plays lights out, hypothetically, they could end up making a run for it, right? However, if it ends up being, a complete shit show over there and Carson Wentz plays like ass, then what we're going to end up seeing is, Malik Willis take over, and they're just going to cut Carson Wentz with zero, cap ramifications.
As long as he gets 75% of the snaps, I'm happy.
So let's go ahead.
Second round pick.
I remember rooting for that last year. That was fun.
Let's go ahead and hit up this question. So Carson Wentz coming in, he throws a pretty deep ball. Like he can hit his receivers. We saw Pittman take a jump when they weren't running it 45 times a game over there. Is Terry McLaurin? Yes. Is Terry McLaurin going to see an uptick in production, possibly repeat 2020, or do even better moving forward with Carson Wentz at quarterback compared to Taylor Heinicke, who was absolutely brutal?
Yes, I think he'll see an uptick in production because he's a very good football player, and he was a wide receiver 3 last year. So I expect him to be better than that. And I do think that Carson Wentz is better than Taylor Heinicke. But I think that no matter what they were going to do, they were going to have a better quarterback than Taylor Heinicke this year. So compared to like all the other alternatives, which would have been possibly landing Russell Wilson, possibly landing Deshaun Watson, possibly drafting someone who would probably not be good year one, but at least there's like a wider range of outcomes on that. I think that, Wentz probably lands on the not as good end of that spectrum. So yes, I expect Terry to be better than last year. I would say he's probably still a mid wide receiver 2.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Like I think we're going to see more explosive plays out of him. I'm just looking at his yards per target. I'm just dwindling. Like he's pretty much turning into a dump off running back. And one thing about Wentz is he is stupidly aggressive. So I expect to see a few big plays out of McLaurin, which, look, if you got the receivers for it, like I don't mind stupid aggressiveness, and Wentz is actually a good deep ball thrower. So I'm kind of excited to see him a little bit with McLaurin. I think we'll have more boom weeks, but I think, he's a wide receiver 2. I mean, I think our dreams of him being a wide receiver 1 have come and gone, but he can settle into a mid wide receiver 2. And don't forget Curtis Samuel's coming back next year too, hopefully healthy. So that should be fun.
A lot of the Washington fan base is actually rooting for Chris Olave to go there, which I hope is not the case personally. But, I mean, I've never seen a quarterback try and get their running backs' heads cut off outside of maybe Jared Goff, quite like Taylor Heinicke did with freaking Terry McLaurin, man. It was incredible, the passes that he would set him up with. So at least for Terry McLaurin's health purposes, Carson Wentz is an upgrade. So I like Terry McLaurin a little bit more for 2022.
Unfortunate for the running backs. Like Carson Wentz is fundamentally incapable of checking the ball down. I don't understand why. I know that it shouldn't be hard to throw a 5-yard pass.
He can't.
But Wentz doesn't have that ability. Like, it's just bizarre. He has one gear. Like, he has a car with one gear. It's park and it's drive. And he only knows how to throw, like, the ball at 98 mile an hour 4-seam fastball. And, like, I experienced this with Miles Sanders, and then I experienced it with Jonathan Taylor, and it's like you just see the running back leaking out of the backfield, and he just, like, whips it the fuck at their head. And it's like, what are you doing? And yeah, Gibson and McKissick have that to look forward to. If McKissick
got to show off my strength, bro. All right, so let's digress a little bit, and I want to back this off. We hit a little bit of this news, and I want to dive back into the trades and into free agency. But first, I just want to recap a little bit about the Combine. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but we talked about how the Combine is more of like a safety net. Like, hey, at least this player accomplished this level, versus like, oh my God, this guy was so fast, he's going up draft boards, right? Like, that's something that we talked about in last week's episode as to where, like, hey, Combine's great to know, but you don't want to double count things. And Shane brought this up in particular. So Shane, what were you meaning by saying, hey, you don't want to double count stats? You don't want to double count, 40 times.
Well, exactly that. Like, so if there's a receiver that's burning that you expect to be fast, and then he goes and runs a fast 40, you shouldn't be like, oh my God, I can't believe he's fast. I'm moving him up my boards. Just that simple. And we do that all the time. As opposed to, let's say, like a player like Breece Hall. Everybody came all over themselves after the combine because they weren't expecting the test physically like he did. So that's fine. You're not double counting it because you didn't expect him to go out there and put up one of the best RAS scores. That's the one we're all glomming on to now, right? RAS scores.
Well, technically it'd be a RAS score because RAS stands for relative athletic score. So if you say RAS score, it's relative athletic score. Score.
So RAS score. It's like RBI. I don't know the proper pronunciation of it. Garrett Wilson at 4.3. Yeah, but that's kind of my point. Like, so Chris Olave ran a lot faster than I thought he would, right? But does that make
he ran a lot faster. And
then they all ran a lot faster. Yeah, they were breaking records, and then they realized that the clocks didn't start. That's all I mean by double counting. And then like Kyron Williams. Kyron Williams is also the opposite end of that spectrum where you expected him to be a little quicker and a little heavier and a little burstier. And he went out there and he ran like me after a cigarette. So not good.
I have a different version of double counting. How I define double counting is like Chris Olave ran a 4.26. Then they counted again and they were like, oh no, actually he ran a 4.4.
All right. So let's talk about some of these players who actually had great combines first, and we'll dive into some of the busts. But I want to know if it moved the needle at all for you guys. So we're going to start with Desmond Ritter, who came in 4 pounds heavier, and he still ran heavier than he did at the Senior Bowl, which was also heavier than heavier than he was waiting for the season. And he still ran a 4.52, had a 36-inch vertical leap, which I did not see coming, and a 10.7 broad jump. Did his combine do anything for you guys? I honestly didn't really like his drills. His mechanics looked a little bit off, but that was something we were expecting anyways. Did he move the needle at all for you guys in the combine, whether it was good or bad?
He started getting more buzz with NFL teams, so that moved it for me. I said this on, I don't know, one of the many podcasts I freaking do. He's like a discount Malik Willis at this point, right? Where you're gonna have to pay the 101 for Malik Willis. Maybe I just go, I don't want to risk that. Maybe I'll just go get Desmond Ritter for the 110 in the Superflex draft.
Yeah, I think ultimately what he did to move up is not really related to what he put down. Like, he ran fast, which is cool. I already knew he was athletic. He has a really nice college rushing share. He's not Malik Willis level rusher, but he's going to be a rusher. But I think he did a nice job of just moving past some other quarterbacks. Like Kenny Pickett had the small hands, which is a concern. Matt Corral wasn't able to do any drills. Sam Howell looked like shit. Carson Strong looked like shit.
Well, Carson Strong has a very good arm. It's just he can't move.
No, but like it felt like all those other quarterbacks, like it felt like Strong and Howell in particular were not getting good buzz on their drills at all. And then you had Pickett with the hands, like, I think Ritter and Corral not being able to perform. So I think Ritter has moved into the spot where he might actually be the third quarterback off the board now. I think if 3 go in the first round, I think there's a decent chance that Ritter is one of them. And from everything I've read, it sounded like he did a great job in the interviews, which, that matters a lot to these NFL teams. So it moves the needle from that sense, just in the sense that if any of these quarterbacks get first round draft capital, I'm going to be interested in them. And I think Ritter has a lot better chance to do that now than he did a week ago.
Well, speaking of the quarterback who probably had the best or most raved about interviews of the entire combine, Malik Willis. Everybody was talking about how intelligent he was, how quick he was. They didn't even. Some people were sitting there saying, "Oh, we didn't believe that a black guy can speak." That's basically how those. Yes, that's what I was just about to say. I was like, how insulting could you be? We didn't expect him to be that intelligent. What? Okay, that's absolutely ridiculous. First off, but I mean, second off, the guy.
I mean, but I guess it's progress, right? Because no one wants to move him to wide receiver.
I mean, compared to Lamar Jackson, I mean, so. When watching the combine, watching the drills, watching everything, Malik Willis looked like a man, amongst boys. He's sitting there and he looked bigger. He looked more athletic. He looked physically imposing compared to the rest of the quarterbacks. And then it was kind of funny because they're all sitting there and they're doing the long bomb drill, right? And he threw 2 beautiful balls. That's what each quarterback got. And then there was 2 passes that were left, right? And they're like, hey, who wants to step up? And one was to I don't even remember who the wide receiver was, but it was, somebody that would likely be a 6th round pick, 5th round pick, right? And everybody's like, I think it might have been David Bell, to be honest. But whoever it was, he's like, no, you go. And he kind of pushed the guy out to go throw the pass, right? The other receiver was Olave. And as soon as Olave stepped up the line, he's like, oh, no, give me the ball. I want to throw it. So, like, he was the leader in that whole entire group, which was kind of funny to watch. Like, he was the one that was in control. He was the one that was demanding the attention or commanding the attention. And he ended up having an awesome interview process. So did Malik Willis move up the boards at all for you guys? Because for me, he did. Like, Superflex leagues, I was thinking, okay, I might be willing to take him 104, 105. I'm assuming he's going to go in the first round anyways. Now I'm like, dude, he might be the 102, 103 for me.
Well, Malik Willis didn't move up the board for me because Malik Willis came in as my 101 and he is still my 101. So he didn't move up the board, but I mean, I'm pumped about him. If anything, he kind of came somewhat close to moving down because like I had him as 101 in a tier completely of his own coming into the combine. With just no one like remotely close to him, I thought. And then Breece Hall like melted faces so badly that I now have that as sort of a 2-man tier. So I love Malik Willis. I mean, I pray that people don't overcomplicate this. If he is the number 1 pick off the board, probably not 101, but like if he's the number 1 quarterback off the board in the NFL draft, he runs a ton. Just draft the guy. Like, don't overthink it. If you want Hall over him, I can't argue with that, but man, I would not be taking these wide receivers over a top 10 drafted quarterback who runs constantly.
Yeah, that'd be just plain fucking stupidity. I mean, honestly, the only player that you should be taking over him is Breece Hall, and I am seriously considering that in a lot of leagues. But if you're going to draft anyone else in this draft, it's going to be him. Like, this draft is a draft of basically 3.5 players right now. Hopefully Spiller can tear up his pro day so we can like him again.
Unlikely.
It's good to hope. It's good to dream. But I think Malik Willis was easily the 101 in everyone's eyes. At least since the Senior Bowl, right? Since he tore up the Senior Bowl.
Well, except Chase's. Who are the guys that you had above Willis coming in?
In terms of all players or quarterbacks?
Whoever.
Yeah. I didn't have any quarterbacks over him at all.
In Superflex. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have any quarterbacks over my head. Burks, and I had Hall above him. He was my 103. I could have seen ways where Drake London could have worked in there and Garrett Wilson. But yeah, he could have ended up as 105, but I just saw how he commanded the room, and I was like, okay, he moved up to 102, possibly 101.
Maybe he'll keep commanding rooms as a commander.
Maybe he will. So I rewatched the last episode, and Jakob was talking about how there were no elite running backs in this class and how there would not be one that went in the first round. So, Jakob, have you changed your stance on Breece Hall? Do you think he can go in the first round now after putting on that amazing pro day that he had and weighing in at the amount that he did? And, how much has he moved up for you? Because you just said he moved up to the next tier, but, I mean, was there somebody ahead of him prior to? Were you willing to take possibly Burks or London over top of him before the combine, and now you're like, oh, it's not even a question anymore?
He didn't really move up like in my linear ranks. Like coming into the combine, he was my 102, and he remains my 102. But before it was like, he's my 102, but I could kind of sort of see taking Burks or London or Wilson ahead of him. And now it's like, he's my 102, but I could kind of see taking him over Malik Willis. So it's just like, he's moved up in terms of gap, and he's moved up in terms of like previously coming into the combine. If I had a 102, my thought process was I'm either going to trade back to the later first and try to add something on top, or I'm going to just try and trade up to the 101. Whereas now if I have the 102, I'm just as content as having the 101. Because I first of all, I don't know who the person in front of me is going to take. I don't know if they'll take Willis or Hall. I'm almost equally content with either one. And now it's different where it's like, I think that this tier now in this rookie draft, I think there's a clear tier of 2. And now it's like, if I'm at the 103, 104, I'm trying to decide, okay, do I want to trade up into the top 2, or what would I want to move back a little bit and add some more? So Hall did move up for me. I still don't think he goes in the first round of the NFL draft, but it's possible.
Shane?
I mean, yeah, I had him as the same as Jakob, really. I mean, I had him as the 102 as it was anyway. I thought maybe Spiller could gain some ground on him. Instead, Spiller fell back and Walker surpassed Spiller. And Hall jumped into the conversation of, you know what, I might be more comfortable just taking him at 101. Like if I know Superflex, trust me, I'm the guy that's always like, you got to draft the quarterback. And this might be the 1 year where I'm like, not this year. I'm all right. I'm going to go get Hall.
No, and I love Breece Hall moving forward. Oh man, there is another running back that I believe we have to talk about.
Breece Hall in like overall dynasty? I think that's almost the more interesting conversation.
He's a top 12
RB6. Like, how about RB6? Like, there's the top 5 that almost everybody has, right? So that like 90% of people have the same top 5 in some order, which is Taylor, Swift, Harris, Javonte, and McCaffrey. And then like anyone else you'd rather have over Hall?
Well, Akers is still in there, right?
Not for me. I would take Hall over Akers.
I mean, I don't. I wouldn't, but I'm assuming people like him.
No, I think he's more in the borderline top 12 range now, Akers.
So this is where I'm at. Like, if I could trade Najee Harris for Breece Hall and something else, I would absolutely pound the shit out of that trade. Like, I would just face hump it. Yeah. So
how about straight up? Like, would you, if you're in a startup and you have to take a running back, would you rather have like Hall or like Mixon or Eckler?
No, I'll take Hall over both those.
Okay. How about, and then Hall over Dobbins, Akers, ETN, all those young guys?
Yeah.
It comes to me, it boils down to J.K. Dobbins and ETN. That's where I'm like questioning how I want to build my team. So if I'm in a startup and I want to build my team more towards youth and I want to try and find guys that, you know, might end up hitting in 2 years from now, in 3 years from now, like, and I want to draft like Jamar Chase or something along those lines, that's where I would probably go that route. But yeah, I don't see
that wasn't our choice. Our choice was running back straight up.
No. But I'm saying like that's where he would come in. So like late second round pick, if I have an option, I mean late first round pick, early second, like on the turn or something like that. I have Jamar Chase and I have Breece Hall. I would take those two to combine with each other.
That's pretty crazy. Like, so the 102 and the 101 were going like in the 4th round startups, right?
They were.
And now we're talking about Hall as a 2nd round pick. I mean, that's a pretty massive upgrade.
But if I end up having like the mid first round, right, and I take a quarterback right off the bat, let's say Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes, I'd much rather take a J.K. Dobbins to go along with it, who I think will have more immediate production and who I don't have to worry about landing spot in year 1, and I can actually make a run at the championship in the first year. So that's where I would decide to go with things. But let's hop over to another running back so we can keep the show moving. We've already exhausted a lot of the time so far. And let's talk about one of the running backs right here that Thomas Tipple has put together for us. And if you guys head over to youtube.com/fantasy intervention, you guys are already on it. Make sure you hit subscribe, hit like on the channel right now so you guys can actually check out some of these combine clips. I'm going to go ahead and share my favorite running back at their value for this class.
I suck on my other show with that music coming in.
Look how soft those hands are, Jacob.
Oh,
yeah, because they're certainly not callous because they've never touched leather before.
I love the move he just put on that. That guy right there. I have no idea what was doing.
So soft. Oh, look at that cut. That's so sexy.
Kind of lazy, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, look, I just don't understand the process of this argument with Walker. My argument will be forever inscribed in print whenever my next player profile article gets published. But look, he did what he needed to do at the combine. Okay, he absolutely did. He ran under 4.4. He came in heavier than expected. Like, I have no reason to doubt that he's a really good rusher of the football. It's just this receiving argument to me, I just don't think that it's logical. This argument that he wasn't asked to do it, it doesn't mean that he can't do it. Like, it's not technically wrong. Like, we don't know for sure that he didn't do it, but like, it's really hard to prove, that something that is impossible. However, there's just no evidence that he actually can do it. Like, his receiving market share was 2.7%. Did they throw to running backs a lot? No. However, they threw to running backs less in 2021 at Michigan State than they did the year prior when Walker was not on the team. When they did throw to running backs, Walker didn't even get 50% of the opportunities. So, like, can he do it? I don't know. Maybe. But there's no evidence to suggest that he can. And if you even try to look at this peripheral argument of like, okay, but Michigan State, didn't throw to running backs a lot. Like, that doesn't even hold water. It's not like they were more likely to do it with Walker than their other backs, or more likely to do it when they had Walker on the team. So I just can't get past it. Like, at this point, he's probably going to be going as like a mid-first round pick. I would still rather have Isaiah Spiller. And if he gets day 2 capital, I'd rather have Rachaad White.
Okay. I
might rather have Zamir White, because at least he has an excuse for not catching passes, because James Cook's on his team and he's actually good at that.
Oh man. No, with the hype that Kenneth Walker gained from NFL teams and how they're talking about him, I am all in on Kenneth Walker now. I think that he is a lock to be an early second round pick, and they're going to spend the capital on him. If he lands with Miami, man, it's hard for me not to take him in the top 3 picks in Superflex, to be honest.
Oh my God. Yeah, sure. If people are going to do that, like, then that's awesome. Because then they don't even have to worry about it, right? Like, if he was sitting there at like 110 or something, I'd have to be like, oh my God, like, am I sure I have this opinion? But if he's going like 103, 104, 105, which I do think is possible, because I do think he'll be a round 2 pick, like, yeah, it's just not even a consideration. Because if I can just still take the top 4 wide receivers, then I don't even have to look at them.
All right, so let's hop on to the wide receivers. Let's try and make this one fast so we can dive into free agency and the trades a little bit. Christian Watson, right, crushed every possible test he possibly could have.
You're going to love that guy, aren't you, Chase?
Dude, it's going to be hard for me not to. I'm going to try and not.
Well, just remember one of his closest comps, and this isn't from me. This is a lot of people tweeted it out. Darius Hayward Bay.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to go back nailed that one on the show the other day.
Yeah, there you go. DHB. So, yeah.
I
felt a lot better about him looking at his athletic scores until people started telling me like who else has scored in that range, and it was players like DHB being one of the most prominent, and I was like, oh, okay, never mind.
Probably Denzel Mims scored in that range too.
Oh, for sure.
Probably, but yeah.
Donovan Peoples-Jones, one of those two did.
Not a great college producer, athletic marvel.
So I'm not saying that he's a comparison, but I mean, is this year's like Terrace Marshall, where he rises up fantasy draft boards? Meanwhile, the NFL doesn't like him quite as much, and he goes in the 3rd round of drafts, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, he's a borderline 1st round pick." Are people going to overdraft him because of this combine?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they will. Yeah. But I think that you're wrong about the middle part. Like, I think that the NFL is going to draft the shit out of him. And I really hope that they do, because again, like, I have a lot of picks in the late 1st. And if we could get Christian Watson to go in the early 2nd and some crazy person to draft him with a mid to late 1st round rookie pick, oh, please let it happen. Like, that would be a dream for me. I don't know what to think on Watson, man. Like, he's a non-early declare FCS wide receiver who didn't do anything productive until year 3. He didn't even catch a single touchdown until his 3rd year of college. So, like, yes, he's super athletic, which is really fun. He looks really fun on tape, but like, this is a guy who has mediocre production, late declare, FCS. Like, that's a lot of red flags. That's a lot of red flags.
I need to take a deeper dive in him before I profess my love. Garrett Wilson, right? He actually probably had a little bit of stock increase, right?
I don't know. He was thought of as the wide receiver. He feels like the default wide receiver 2 to everyone, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, at worst, wide receiver 2. Like, a lot of people have him at 1, but I feel like everyone has him behind or in between London and Burks.
Yeah. He's top 3 for sure. I saw one where they did not have him in top 3 and they replaced Olave, so he ended up at 4, but that was like 1 out of 100 of them that I've seen so far.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think I think he feels like he stayed the same. You know what I mean? He didn't do anything out of worldly where you're like, all right, well, he's definitely my number 1 wide receiver. If he wasn't before that, What does
I think the best argument you could make for Wilson moving up is that London didn't participate and Burks kind of underwhelmed. So, I mean, those are his two biggest competitors.
Down.
Right, like, those are his 2 biggest competitors for wide receiver 1, and Wilson did what he needed to do, and London opted out, and Burks was kind of meh. Yeah, Husker asks, what does anyone have over Garrett Wilson as a complete wide receiver? Husker doesn't see it. I have a hard time like making like a definitive case for anybody else over Wilson. Like, Wilson's in my tier 1. He's my wide receiver 3. To me, like, in terms of an elite ceiling player, I prefer a guy like Burks with a little more of that size, a little bit more of that explosion ability. And I do think that the production profile is interesting to discuss because, like, Wilson's production profile, I think, is as good as you could reasonably expect for a guy who was playing with 2 other first-round picks this year. And he had a really excellent second year. You know, to me, it's easy to say, and in fact, I would probably say that if Wilson was on USC or on Arkansas this year, he probably would have produced just as much as Burks or London did. But like, it's just easier for me to make that argument against people that have some sort of little red flag on their profile and say, well, Wilson doesn't have any red flags. But to me, like, the guys that did do everything that I want to see in the production, like, I just give them that little tick up, which is why I prefer London and Burks by like a smidge. But I don't even prefer them to the extent that, like, if everyone's taking, like, if people are taking Wilson over London or Burks, whatever, and I'm not consistently getting Wilson as the wide receiver 3, I want to mix it up. Like, I don't want to be at a spot where we get the end of rookie draft season and I have like 4 Wilsons or 4 Londons and 4 Burks and 0 Wilsons. Like, I want Wilsons on my teams.
Is Treylon Burks like this year's version of Laviska Shenault? Because, I mean, Laviska Shenault, obviously he didn't test well, right? But he was injured when he got hurt, so people made excuses. Treylon Burks didn't test well either, but I feel like they're not the same player, but they're like, hey, Treylon Burks can do everything, right? He can take balls, short. He can end up running routes and making contested catches, although he can't create separation. But, he can do everything. So is Treylon Burks somebody that is in a situation where we could see him bust majorly, like not just like a normal, typical, like, first round, hey, he didn't do too hot this year, he could break out in year 2, but could he be like the next Laviska Shenault where he never does anything in his college career?
It's a thin line between Laviska Shenault and Deebo Samuel, apparently, right?
Maybe.
No, I don't think he's the next Laviska Shenault. I think, and he can separate. I think he's going to be fine. I think people are losing their shit. He's 1 inch shorter than we thought, right? He didn't before the combine. We thought he'd run like a 4.44, 4.49 is what we were hoping, right? And he ran a 4.55, I think. Yeah.
Well, there's some crazy people that thought he was going to run in the low 4.3s, but that was always insane.
That's not anyone that's ever watched him play or has read anything about him or knows what a 40 time is. Like, none of those people. When we're just talking about these receivers, though, I'll tell you what, between Burks, London, and I guess Wilson, I don't have a lot of conviction towards any of them. I feel this is going to be one of those years where I just kind of grab all 3 of them in different drafts and go, well, one of them is going to be right. But I do feel like I do like Burks. I don't know how to state it. I didn't look at his college breakout production right now. You can tell me it, Jacob, off the top of your head. What's his what was his breakout age?
Well, so his breakout age was 20, but his breakout year was year 2 because he was a little bit older coming in. So his profile looks almost identical to like a Demaryius. Well, not quite as productive as Demaryius on a rate level, but similar idea to Demaryius Thomas, AJ Brown, where it's an early declare second year breakout, but they started college at age 19, not 18. So it pushes the age back a little bit.
Right. And there's been people that have looked into that, like the late college starters like that. They start at an older age or a JUCO transfer. The breakout age obviously doesn't mean as much. It's more important when did they break out, like you were saying, year. I'm fine with Burks, man. I'm going to trust stuff like that, dominator and breakout age or breakout year in this case. He's going to be fine. He's going to be fine.
I think so. I mean, yeah, could he bust? Yes, because everyone could bust. Like, I think 1 out of 4 perfect prospects are probably still going to bust. And so I would bet that, I don't think that any individually of Burks, Wilson, London, or Williams will bust. Like, I think they're all really good prospects. However, I expect one of them to. I just don't know which one, which is why I probably want to have pretty even exposure to all of them because I don't think there's a massive gap, and I don't know who's going to bust.
Honestly, like, I agree with Ferris 100%. I feel like Burks is actually slightly worse AJ Brown. Every time I watch the film, I feel that same exact way. It's it's literally like watching, a reflection of the 2 players. So let's dive into some bigger news. Let's start out with the Rodgers re-signing with Green Bay Packers, Devontae Adams, and what does this mean moving forward for fantasy? Is MVS coming back? Are we going to see Lazard come back? Like,
no, really don't care.
I mean,
could they draft Drake London to be the next Lazard in the slot? And if that's the case,
that's so Drake offensive to Drake London, by the way, that you called him the next Lazard.
I think he's going to be the superstar version of Lazard. I think he's going to be playing that big slot.
Remarkably offensive.
They love the big slot, and if Lazard was able to play that like his entire career and stay healthy, and instead of going through these weird injuries that he goes through, I think that Lazard would be looked at entirely differently. But no, I mean. Like we're taking the position that Allen Lazard plays, and now we're putting Drake London into that spot. And I think it could result in a 10 to 12 touchdown season if he makes it all the way back to Green Bay.
I support this. Yes, I don't think he makes it that far. I think London's going to go pretty early. I would expect him to be gone in the first half of the first round. But if he lasts all the way to Green Bay, sign me up, please. And Jermaine saying saw Treylon Burks mock to the Cowboys. I mean.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. As a person who's notably lower than consensus on CeeDee Lamb, just absolutely yes.
No, I do not want that. Come on, I don't want anyone else.
I want that for Burks.
Exactly. I want Amari
that for Burks. I want that for the timeline. I want that for the memes. I want that for enjoyment. Just please.
No, it's all bad.
They're gonna go after Olave. All right, so, I mean, does Amari Rodgers have any value moving forward? No. What happens with Jordan Love? Give me some takes on.
Rodgers.
Here's my takes on the Packers. Devontae Adams good. Aaron Rodgers good. Running backs good. No one else.
Yeah, Amari Rodgers put up less than 200 receiving yards in his rookie year. It doesn't matter.
Less than 2 receiving yards.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if every wide receiver on that team left. He was literally the only one there, and they ran 3 wide receiver sets with A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, and him.
They used a guy named Winfrey.
Yeah.
Over him.
Oprah? Winfrey?
Yeah.
No, he's dead. Jordan Love, he's clearly dead. Devontae Adams, what you got is you got a wide receiver 1 for 2 more seasons. Aaron Rodgers, you got yourself a quarterback 1 for a couple more seasons. Anyone that didn't trade him away or couldn't trade him away in this offseason is feeling pretty good about themselves in Superflex.
All right, so I'll bring up some of these players that got re-signed or tagged. Stop me if y'all want to talk about a certain player. David Njoku off the bat.
I hate the Browns.
The Browns committed a hate crime.
What is wrong with the Browns? What are you doing?
Oh my God. I knew you guys would want to talk about this. I was like, hey, stop me if you guys are interested. Let's go and stop on the first one.
Like, this is it entrapment, extortion, kidnapping? Like, what?
Kidnapping.
It's some sort of crime.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they mistreat him and then they keep him.
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's horrible.
God.
And then apparently they still want to keep Austin Hooper too because.
Oh, they're keeping Hooper now.
I hate the Browns, and they deserve every bad thing that ever happens to them. I hope they contract again and move to another city.
Dude, we just lost all of our Browns fans. So for Harrison Bryant, let me just bring this up real quick. Is he a dynasty stash for you guys? Because I mean, there's a chance that if Njoku gets hurt this year, Austin Hooper could be gone after this year, and all of a sudden Harrison Bryant is the tight end 1 for the Browns.
Harrison Bryant, the guy who they were so impressed with the last 2 years that they're paying $21 million for tight ends that aren't him.
Possibly.
That guy? Yeah, no.
Just bring it up.
Tell me not interested.
Okay, Chris Godwin. Right? It sucks. I hate that they tagged him. I hate it. The whole purpose of this, I guess, was to try and lure Tom Brady out of retirement. Otherwise, they probably should just let him walk and gone with Carlton Davis instead. But no, they had to tag Chris Godwin.
I was already out on Chris Godwin. I'm just out, I guess.
Look, Chris Godwin's I don't mean this like to say he's bad or anything. He is what he is wherever he goes. Like I think he's a top 15 wide receiver. He's going to have seasons where that skews closer to top 6 production. And he's going to have other seasons when that skews closer to top 15. I don't think quarterbacks make the wide receiver. So I don't really care who his quarterback is. And I'm fine with him being there.
It does help.
I hope it's Jimmy Garoppolo, just so that my quarterback isn't Jimmy Garoppolo.
So Chris Godwin has outproduced his ADP every year outside of 1 year. And that was the year they got hurt. But yeah, that's points per game.
That sounds like an excuse to me.
Do the Bucs avoid making a play for a quarterback this year? in order to entice Tom Brady to return? Do you guys see them make
Tom Brady doesn't want to come back. He hates Bruce Arians. Where have you been? That's been all over the
He hates him almost as much as Shane hates Bruce Arians.
Yeah.
You guys aren't talking to me, okay? You know that we're on a live show with people that might not be paying attention, that actually have lives outside of fantasy football. I'm just saying. They might have lives outside of fantasy football.
Why?
So they're watching our show to get recaps to figure out what we know.
Wait. They watch us to get reliable information?
Well, somewhat reliable information.
That's they make bad decisions.
Yeah, no.
Yes, Ferris.
Brady's not coming back.
They should suffer for eternity for not unleashing Chubb. Yeah, did you see the report? They're keeping Kareem Hunt too.
Of course they are.
They're keeping everybody. They don't want to have anyone. They don't. Fuck the Browns. Yeah. I don't know what the hell the Bucs are doing at quarterback. Like, it seems like it's been really quiet. They have a very late pick. They have Blaine Gabbert.
Kyle Trask.
I haven't really heard them brought up in the Jimmy G sweepstakes.
I like the Heath Cummings comment, right? He wants the hashtag bring Winston home.
Yeah, I just think Winston's going to stay in New Orleans.
That sounds like a fait accompli. Like he's going to be in New Orleans. I would love Winston there. If Deshaun Watson isn't in prison, I wouldn't be shocked to see them make a play for him because
that's a good spot for him.
Look, they're about trying to get titles. You know what I mean? Like Bruce Arians could literally die at any minute. Like that dude is old. He's got a heart condition. He's not playing for tomorrow. He's literally playing for today. So if anyone would make a move, and clearly they don't care what people think. So I could see them making a run at Deshaun Watson, assuming he's not in jail.
All right. With Mike Gesicki, he cannot block, but he was talking about how he could end up being the George Kittle of this offense. But in order to be the George Kittle of this offense, you have to block. So is there a chance that Mike Gesicki just plays the George passing down role where he just runs routes, all the routes that George Kittle would have ran, and that he actually reclaims any kind of credibility in fantasy football because he's pretty much lost it up to this point?
Gesicki, I mean, so I was talking in my patron chat yesterday about him. Someone brought up he was like the tight end 5 through the first 11 weeks.
Yeah.
And then I have no idea what happened other than they were just like, no, we can't have this in a free agency year. And Brian Flores started passing Mike Gesicki 20s to not get open on routes. A little known fact. Breaking that here per sources, per our JRA football. I don't want my tight ends to be George Kittle. Like we've had this discussion before. I want them to go run routes. I don't want them blocking. I don't want them to be good at blocking, but I want him to be on the field and catching passes. So I hope Yale Boy is smart enough to use him as a receiver because he's an excellent receiver.
Yeah, I think Gesicki's going to be fine. You know, I think that I can't imagine that Mike McDaniel is under any sort of illusions as to Mike Gesicki's blocking ability. Like it doesn't exist. It's never existed. I think we've known since Penn State that he's basically just a big wide receiver with a swaggy face. And I think with Mike Gesicki, if they decided to put the franchise tag on him, they have plans for him. And I expect that they will use him to his skill set. Exactly. There's not a lot of target competition there. I mean, there's Waddle and it's him, and there's currently nobody else. I'm sure they'll want to add somebody, but I expect Gesicki to have a really nice year.
You can't use the franchise tag argument. It means they're going to use them, though, when we just talked about David and Jakob.
Yeah, well, the Browns don't count. The Browns are run by dummies.
All right. Is Dalton Schultz the hottest player not being talked about right now? Because I don't think he's garnering near enough attention with him being pretty much the only other option on the offense outside of CeeDee Lamb and the running backs. I mean, he was tight end 3 this past season, right? So
right,
is
Dalton tight end 3 to like what point?
What do you mean?
Like I understand that he scored the 3rd most points, but like how many points per game did he actually score? I'm looking it up.
I did all the pre-sub research, so I don't have.
Yeah, he had 12.3 points per game, right? So which is tight end 5 in points per game.
That's so good.
And then if I
scroll 25-year-old tight end
all the way down to like Freiermuth, who was tight end 16, 9.5. So it's like sure, he was tight end 3 overall, tight end 5 points per game. He's not even giving you 3 points per game over like a middling tight end 2.
What about after like Godwin got hurt?
Wasn't that like pretty darn close to immediately? I mean, Jarwin was never really doing much.
No, Jarwin was taking like 50% of targets to start off the year.
But early in the season, I mean, he had 10.5 the first game. Then he didn't do anything the second game, 3.8. But like afterwards, with Jarwin healthy, he had 26 points, 18, 14, 13. Like he was doing fine. I just think with Schultz, like I think I like Schultz way more than I like Knox. Like I just don't think Knox is good. I think he just got a lot of touchdown luck, and I think that he's going to fall off the face of the earth. I don't think Schultz is going anywhere. I think Schultz is a legit player. He earned targets next to several other good receivers, but I just don't know that it's ever going to be a difference-making season. Like I think that he's going to have like a Hunter Henry-esque career, which is like he'll always be in the league. He'll always be in the tight end one conversation. You'll be fine if you have him. But like I'd still just rather use his value to move off him because I just don't want to live in that area at tight end. I'd rather either use Schultz and then try to spend up and go get someone with a little bit more juice, and a little bit more upside, like a Kittle or a Waller, or even like one of the younger guys, like a Goddard or a Freiermuth or something like that. Or I'm just going to trade him and then I'll just punt tight end and play like freaking whoever, like an Evan Ingram.
Shane, how you feeling about Dalton Schultz?
He's fun. He's a top 8 tight end, but that's whatever. I don't think he's an elite tight end. I think he, sure, if Amari Cooper doesn't come back and Michael Gallup can't start the season, sure, he'll see something close to an 18-20% target share to start the year. And then as soon as better options get there, then that'll drop down. But I mean, he's fine. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna overpay for him.
Yeah, Parker sucks, Ferris. I'm sorry to break it to you, but Parker's targets are actually not earned.
All right, so we're going to skip this next segment. I want to drop into the big news of the day, or of the past couple of days. Let's talk about Drew Lock. Drew Lock going to Seattle. Drew Lock going to Seattle.
For my city, I put on for my
He now has some significant weapons. He has Noah Fant. He has Tyler Lock. He has DK Metcalf over there.
Wait, you think he's going to play?
Can Drew Lock be a QB1 on the season? Can he be a top 3 quarterback?
He won't even be the QB1 for the Seattle Seahawks.
I can't keep it going. I was trying. I was trying to keep it going. So
see, you have so many ridiculous takes that I didn't know for sure that was a joke. No, I didn't know for sure that was.
We don't even know who's going to be the quarterback. Could be Geno Smith moving forward. But Russell Wilson, is he in a better situation with Seattle? Or is he in a better situation with Denver in terms of weapons and bad defenses and opportunities to score? Maybe they end up running the ball just as often as they were, and Javonte Williams even takes more red zone targets away from Russell Wilson. Maybe Russell Wilson never starts to cook in the first place. Sure, they let Russ cook for a little bit in the beginning of the season for the past couple of years, but maybe he never even gets to cook over there in Denver. Is Russell Wilson in a better situation?
Yes, the issue with Seattle above all else is tempo. They just run the slowest offense in the league, and so they just don't run enough plays. Like, it's not even as much just about the run-to-pass ratio. It's just the play volume. Like, they ran 56 plays a game last year. That is absolutely abominable. You just can't work with that.
Like the snowman? Abominable snowman?
Yeah. Like, even with a league average pass rate on 56 plays per game, you end up throwing like 32 pass attempts a game. It's horrible. So Nathaniel Hackett also ran a really slow offense with the Green Bay Packers, but that was LaFleur who was calling the plays. So I don't think we can be totally sure exactly how they're going to go from a pace perspective, but I would at least take the unknown over the known. And yeah, I don't know that Denver's going to be extraordinarily pass heavy, but I definitely think that they're going to be able to run faster just because every team in the league runs faster than what Seattle's been doing. So I think it's an upgrade. I don't think it's like massively game changing. I was pretty into buying Russ regardless, but I think it's an upgrade for him. I mean, the interesting part is all the weapons, right?
Well, in addition, they were allowed Aaron Rodgers to pretty much do whatever he wanted at the line of scrimmage, to read the defense, call the audibles, shift his players around. So that took away from the play clock as well. The majority of the time, that's not going to be the case, I don't think, with Russell Wilson. Although, sure, it could end up having a little bit of an effect, but Russell Wilson doesn't like playing that way anyways. He wants to pass as many times as he possibly can in a game.
Yeah, they just gave up a whole fucking host of shit. Like, you don't do that just to be like, all right, now hand the ball off a bunch of times, Russ.
There's Javonte Williams. I'm just saying.
He's fine. Look, it's a downgrade in wide receivers. Metcalf and Lockett are fucking beasts, and you go to, okay wide receivers. But yeah, the volume is where he's going to make up for it. He's always been efficient. So now it's going to be, all right, well, what's it look like on some volume? It's hard to imagine that, like I said, that Denver traded for him, gave up 2 firsts and Noah Fant and Shelby Henderson. Is that the guy's name?
Harris.
Yeah, that guy. And then,
so like Seattle, by the way, to be like, we demand a veteran defensive tackle for this roster.
To throw into our rotation of other defensive tackles.
Yeah. So now I'm assuming that the volume is going to be increased in Denver, so it should be good times.
My favorite thing was Shelby Harris's tweet, though. Did you see Shelby Harris's tweet with the crying face? Yeah, I felt so bad for him. I'm like, damn, dude, that sucks.
The interesting part is these weapons. Like, it's fascinating because there's a lot of them, but none of them have proven that they're that good yet. Like, we have, it's like Cortland Sutton had a really, really nice second year, her third year. Then he started last year quite good and then did nothing for the entire second half. And then what's weird is, like, you'd say, oh, he did nothing because Judy came back. But then Judy also did nothing. And then you have Tim Patrick, who I guess is the best receiver on the team. But, like, he's not actually that incredible. Like, he kind of is just like a high teens target share guy. And then, Albert O is really interesting. He's very fast. Somewhat productive, at least at Missouri, and he had the 3rd highest target rate per route among tight ends last year, so that's fun. I could easily foresee a scenario in which all these wide receivers obviously get a boost because Russell Wilson is like a lot better than Teddy Bridgewater. However, they might all have like a 19% target share also, so I could see it being kind of spread.
Also, Albert O, according to PFF, was one of the best tight ends that Russell Wilson's ever played with, behind Jimmy Graham and Will Dissly, I believe, from the research that I was doing. I had to stop like 3/4 of the way through it, but he was one of the best graded tight ends, according to PFF.
Because he's the greatest tight end to have ever stepped on a football field.
Oh my God, dude, he was drafted in like the 4th round, wasn't he? All right, so
yeah, but he had a rookie season receiving grade of 81.5.
So obviously we know who the better quarterback is, but is Cortland Sutton now in a better situation than DJ Chark? Because I feel like they were heading on the same trajectory.
Yes.
Like they were heading on the same trajectory, but it might not happen now. But also, Shane, Doug Peterson, your favorite coach, because I know you love Doug Peterson, right?
He won me a Super Bowl. He's a good dude.
Dude, he actually likes the coach. Holy shit, I never expected him to say he likes him. So, now he's down there, and he could end up transforming Trevor Lawrence over there. So what would it take you to move down from Cortland Sutton to DJ Chark in terms of, let's say, draft picks?
A third? I
really?
mean, honestly, yeah, neither of these guys are guys I'm super excited
Jacob
about.
looks offended.
Yeah, it'd take me a lot more than a third.
You're not going to get a lot more than.
See, this is a good conversation. Dude. There it is.
Well, I guess I like Sutton. Sutton's the only one of these Denver wide receivers that's ever flashed any legitimate target earning potential.
No, I mean Judy was okay in his rookie season.
Like Sutton has a year of 27% target share.
I think they're all exceed at best. You're like the wide receiver 2s at best.
What's happening?
This is incredible. So one of my friends decided to put a ad on Craigslist today about me having a free boat to give away. And I've been getting hundreds of text messages and now phone calls at 10:10 at night about this free boat that I'm giving away. And it has my phone, look, I mean, literally I checked my phone a few seconds ago. It already has like 10 more text messages. It's been happening the whole entire night. We talked about it pre-show, but you missed out on it.
Oh, darn. Yeah, I like Sutton more than Chark. I would need like a mid-second with Chark to do that deal. I'm not a Chark guy.
I wouldn't even give you a second by itself for Sutton.
Okay, well then I can have all the Cortland Sutton and you can have all the seconds.
I think I'm on the same page as Shane over there. I think I would take, but I'm on a different end of the spectrum. So I would take like a late second for Cortland Sutton or DJ Chark, but it would only take me a third to move down from Cortland Sutton to DJ Chark.
Okay, I would trade like an early second for Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
Like straight up. Like I want Sutton. I think it's I think it's entirely possible that he's a wide receiver 1 in a Russell Wilson offense next year. Like I think that he's flashed higher ceiling than Jeudy. I think like at the median, Jeudy is probably their top wide receiver next year. But I also think it could be Patrick, and I also think it could be Okwuegbunam, and I also think it could be Sutton. But to me, Sutton has shown the most at times if he's fully healthy.
Yeah, look, I could talk myself into Jeudy or Sutton putting up a wide receiver 14 season, and giving up a second round draft pick for that. Really, in this class, especially, does not hurt. I'd be fine with that.
2022 is a different story.
Yeah.
All right, so that pretty much rounds it out for us. Was there any big news that I missed out on, or anything else that you guys wanted to talk about, whether it's Mike Williams, in the future contracts or anything like that?
Next week, we've got by this time next week, it's going to be the legal tampering period, right? Everything's going to be official, come to think of it, on the 16th. So
we have Rich Rebar on with us. Rich Rebar's coming on the show next week, so make sure y'all don't miss out on that. Make sure you hit like and subscribe on that down there so you don't miss out. Anything else? All right, Shane, where can we find you, man?
On the Twitters at Shane is the worst, Dynasty Trades HQ podcast, Dynasty Trades in 5 on the YouTubes. Go subscribe. We're closing in on 1,000 subscribers, which is really cool. She has only been around for a little bit, and everyone keeps telling me how awesome it is. It's like this show, but different.
It's in 5, which is actually like 10.
It's never in 5. I was lied to a lot. And just working on the DLF draft guide, which I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think by this time next week might be dropped.
Really? Already?
Let's go. I'm not 100% sure.
Let's go. All right. Jacob, where can we find you?
Find me on Twitter at @FF_RTDB. You can find me in the Bulletproof Discord. You can find me every Tuesday with the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast, and we've also been doing some shows otherwise, but our next show is Tuesday with Ben Gretsch. That's going to be fun. You can find Shane on the Full Tilt Dynasty Network with the Fantasy Walkabout this Saturday with Tom and Tom Lee. And then you can find my work at playerprofiler.com. I should have an article coming out any day now, kicking off by my new series. So that's where you can find me.
And don't leave yet, dude. Don't leave yet. I see everybody saying thanks, fellas. And main event said fucking love Dynasty Trades in 5. Awesome. But yeah, oh man, everybody's hopping out already. You guys aren't even around for my big announcement for Trophy Smack. We actually, within the next week or so, we have a huge episode that is dropping. We already recorded it. Ian Hartitz is the host. We have Bob Harris. Nice. Bob Harris up against Michael Fabiano, debating 2 guys. Nice. So. Well, debating a topic, I should say. I don't want to say what that topic is, but stay tuned. Make sure you guys go over there to youtube.com/TrophySmack and hit subscribe over there so you don't miss out on this one. We have, oh man, so many different ones. We had Jacob and I who actually debuted that show, and it's been an adventure. We have some big names lined up, such as Heath Cummings. Rich Rebar is going to be on there as well. We have some other names. And Shane, we should be getting you on there. Shane actually has his first article debuting tomorrow for the Smack Zone on Trophy Smack. So go check it out over there at trophysmack.com. And make sure you guys hit subscribe and like on our show over here at Fantasy Intervention, youtube.com/Fantasy Intervention. Big shout out to Fantasy Football Discussion on Facebook. You guys are always great. We appreciate y'all's support, especially with all the news popping around. And yeah, thank you guys for listening. And thank you all for letting us intervene with your fantasy football life. We're out.